Well, welcome back to Living with a Classic. I'm out here with a really good winter project. We've done a video on this about 4 years ago, but it's so important, I think we're going to do a new one. Also, the company behind this product, I've been using their hoses for over 10 years now. And after I made the last video, I didn't make it because I wanted a sponsorship or nothing like that. But they're really happy with actually the result of the video. As I didn't talk to them about it, I just made it because I like the product and I think it's a good idea to change these hoses. I mean, it's a very good idea. They contacted me a couple of years after, and they said they have a discount code that I can use to give to you guys. So I have that down in the description if you want to order one of these kits. Helps. It's a very small company and it's very, very generous of them to do that. It saves you guys a little bit of money and it shows that you appreciate the products. Here is a Jag V12 fuel rail. This is an HE one. I've pretty much completely rebuilt it. I have one injector left to do, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that, just refresh the memory. The previous video I will link down below so you can check that out. That's more in-depth. I made that about 4 years ago. So I'll show you guys one injector. I'll show you how bad the old one is. Here's a container of all the old stuff. And then I'm going to show you something which I did not show in the previous video, is all the hoses around. You can order the kit, which I recommend is the kit 131. Then you get a length of hose as well to do all the hoses around the engine bay, because those are really important as well. So I'm going to show you that as well. But let me set you guys up in tripod. We'll do one injector, then we will do one of the hoses, and I'll show you all of that. Everything you need is just really simple hand tools. A hacksaw. I like one of these quick grips because you take the base on one of these, you drill a small hole, basically so you can put the base of the injector, the tip of the injector on there without damaging it. Then I like to remove the other pad. That's for installing the pinnacle cap and filter. A small screw that is a good size to screw into the filter. You see that in a second. A good, just sharp sort of Stanley knife, just with blades you can throw away because you're going to ruin the blade. Flat screwdriver, and that's about it. So I've replaced all of these, as you can see. However, not sure how well you guys are going to see this, but you can see all the cracking there. So these look good until you actually start, looking at them more closely. All of them will have these sort of rings on them, usually two. Usually one on the main hose onto it and one on one of the long ones. And this is a date code. So you can see this is from 01/07/85. So definitely original. But yeah, step one, cut it off in the middle with a knife, and you saw just how easily I can break that off. You're not supposed to be able to do that. One important thing is you have these hold down clamps. They all fit in a specific order. I recommend doing one side of the rail and then you do the other side, because the injectors, they also point in different directions, you see. Or just take pictures and be really careful about them. So we'll lay this down there. We'll lay this out right there. And that will tell us, all right, that's going to fit on there. Now grab the injector in your hand. This hold down ring here, you can push down a little bit, and then you can get a screwdriver in here, and you can start getting a little rubber grommet out here. This is just sort of vibration, noise dampener thing. But it comes in a kit, so it's a good idea to replace them. There we go. That is out. Put that ring to the side. Now we want to get this part off here. You get new ones in the kit. And contrary to belief, some people think that these are crimped on. They're not. They are pushed on. I would like to describe the end of the injector and the end of the fuel rail a bit like a fishing hook, you know? It wants to go one way and not the other. So these hoses, they're one-time use, of course. You can only slide them on once, you can never get them off again. And that is why it's really important to remember to put everything back, because you can't undo any of this. The hoses in the kit all come cut to length. So you have 10 of them like this, and then you have 2 a little bit longer ones for the front injectors. It's very important that you use the correct hose and that they're all the correct size. That's why this kit is so good. It's not regular fuel hose. It's not regular 8mm. It's a bit less. It's 7 point something. Let's see if I can remember it off the top of my head. We'll look later, but something like 7.8 or 7.3, something like that. So it's an odd size. It needs to be that size. And this is really, really high quality fuel hose. It can withstand, you know, ethanol and all of that. It is actually even graded for airplane use. So really good stuff. Now you put this in a vise. And here comes the part where people think it's a little scary. It is not. You want to get the saw and cut alongside here. As long as you have this thing sliding on the rubber hose, you will just cut into this metal part. You don't need to cut that far. You only need to cut enough so that you can move it to the side and then use a knife to cut it off. So that's what I'm going to do here now. A little bit further, but you guys are a little bit in the way of the camera, but I'm going to give you guys the best view possible. And you see, it's sort of bent in there like that. Now, I take the same screwdriver. And you see, it's quite soft, this stuff. I bend it out to the side. Sometimes I make one more cut to get some more space, but usually that's not necessary. Then I cut this off. Do not cut this way, because you will make a mark into the metal part injector and it will leak. But if you cut this way, you very much minimize the chance of making a mark. And because you're cutting down, you're going to hit the metal down here. That's why you want to use one of these Stanley knives, because you see it is completely chewed up from just doing one of these fuel rails. And just a little bit more. Then you get this sort of down into the bottom. And then you see it starts to be able to turn, and usually at this point you can grab something like this and you see it will just fall apart. So let me get the rest of this. That's why I need to move the camera. You guys are right where I want to stand. Get this out of here, then I'll show you to get the filter out, the pinnacle cap, and then we'll put it all back together. If you were to be unfortunate enough to nick it right here, I didn't do that, but I just took a tool and just made a tiny mark there. You can grab some fine sandpaper and just, not too much, but just sand it like that. And you see, it disappears. I actually like to take very fine sandpaper, it's like 400, and just a small piece like this, and I like to clean up just the area outside. You don't want to, you know, sand anything off, but just clean it up, make sure that the hose can slide on nicely and get a good seal. So that's looking really good now. Now it's the filter, and I leave that until now because when you do a little bit of sanding and things like that, you don't want any of that to go into the injector. So just screw in a screw. Don't know what size it is really, but you'll find one that fits. There you go. The little filter basket. That's what they look like. You see, it's a bit dirty after it's been in there since 1985. Now, I like to, it's one way of cleaning this area out. Just any sort of WD-40 or similar, something that removes water and lubricates a little bit, like that. And then I just take a small piece of paper rag around the outside. There we go. That's really nice looking. Now you flip it around, clamp it in the vise, use your knife again, and cut down the side here to get that pinnacle cap off. And this is where you really sort of ruin the knife a bit. But that's okay. That's why it's the disposable blades. That's enough. Then grab it by the side. And that pulls off. I just like to clean the side here. Be really careful of the tip of the injector there. Pinnacle cap. And your new filter basket. That's all together, and push it until the filter goes in as well. Sometimes you need to reposition it a couple times. And there we go. The filter is now in as well. And just feel that the filter is flush with everything. Now we're ready to get the hose back onto here. Before that, we need the little holder. So you slide that in there. Then you take this rubber piece. These can be a little bit tight, so I like to pull them like that a little bit. That helps them slide on. There we go. And they just seat right down there. One thing, if your injectors, you know, are really rusty or something looking, these are metal, that would be a good time to paint the outside of them. But they're usually not that bad. There we go. Now it's one of these and the hose on. But before we do that, I am going to do the exact same thing to the fuel rail. Cut the off, same with the hacksaw, and get that off. Prepare that, and then we can assemble this directly onto the fuel rail. Cut this off here on 2 places, bent it with a screwdriver, and now we're cutting down the side here again. So it's exactly the same procedure. And a little bit more. Once you've done a couple of these, like a couple injectors even, you really get the hang of it, and it's a pretty quick job. If you're doing everything, you know, taking the fuel rail off, doing all the injectors, and all the hoses around there, I count, you know, if you haven't done it before, pretty much a full day in your workshop to do it. So you see, that is nice and clean. No marks or anything, but I still just take, this is like I said, 400 grit, or 600 I think it might be. And we're just cleaning it up. There we go. Now that is ready to assemble. Do not forget this piece. You can also see usually a mark on them, and that is where they sat against the injector. So we'll prepare this, and there we go. We're going to do the same thing on the injector itself. I like to use a little bit of lubricant on here, just the smallest amount. This is just engine oil. I think it really just helps because it's very important that it seats all the way in the bottom, and it is impossible to pull off again. Stuck on there. Now make sure you know which way it's supposed to point. So it's supposed to point that way on here. Make sure that thing is there. There we go. That is on. One fuel rail done, but now we have all the hoses around it. Here is one of them, for instance. So this is the one that goes from the first fuel pressure regulator into the fuel rail. I'm going to loosen it here, and I'll show you how to replace these. They're really simple to do as well. So here is the feed, one of the feed lines, the one that goes from the fuel pressure regulator to it, and then there's a line before there, but I usually do all the small hoses first. That way you can choose with the longer hoses if you want to use a little bit extra hose or not. There is more than enough. I think you get, it could be like 3 meters of hose or something. It's more than enough, and you get some clamps. So this is where it's a little bit different. Here you see one of those date markings on there. So step one is, of course, get the hoses off and measure them. The hose goes all the way into here and there. So let me try and stretch it out. And I always make them a tiny bit longer. So this is almost 13 centimeters. So we'll get a 13 centimeter piece of hose. Cut it here just like before. These are very similar to the rings that we had here. Once again, they're not crimped. They're not there to hold it, tight. They're just there to hold in place. So you cut alongside them and you get them off. You can't get these ones new, but you get these fuel hose clamps. These are not meant to be tightened on there to make it fuel tight. It should actually be fuel tight without these. But you just sort of tighten them on there, and they do hold the same purpose as these. They're special, really soft fuel hose clamps. There's no sharp edges, nothing in there. And that's the same thing with the ones on injectors. You don't want any fuel hose clamps on those because those are pretty sharp. The barbs on the inside, these are not as sharp on here. But once again, don't tighten them too tight. So we'll measure some hose. 13 centimeters is right about there. There we go. Now we'll cut this again. Look just how I can really just tear it. This is a great idea to replace these hoses. And now you can hold that in a vise. I'm going to cut this off with the hacksaw again, clean it up, and then we'll do the same thing on here and assemble it all together. All cleaned up, nice. You see it looks very similar to what the injectors look like. Grab the hose that we cut and measured and cut before. And you see that slides on, and the same thing, you can't get them off. And then you put these on. I usually don't snug them down until I have it on the car so I can get it in a good position. I'm going to do this one, and I'll do all the other hoses, and then when I'm back, you guys will see this mounted on the car, and you'll sort of see the finished product, what it all looks like. Time to put the fuel rail back on the car. Don't forget the injector seals. Seal them into the intake. I don't put them on until just before I put the intake on, just because I don't want to lose them. Also have a look at your intake. Make sure that you got the old ones out of there. So then it's just a matter of flipping this upside down. You have all these nuts holding it down. And make sure when you put it back that you sort of wiggle everything into place. It's really easy to get them caught up on things. It can be a little finicky getting it back. But after that, you just tighten up all the inlets and outlets and all the hoses that you just replaced, and you're good to go. And there we have the fuel rail in place. All the injectors are plugged in, and we got fuel line there, a new one down there, and new one here. I'm going to do the last one, which goes from here around here, but I'm going to do that when I've done a couple other jobs I'm doing on this car. All right, so that's it for this video. Really good reminder to always do these fuel lines if you don't know when they've been done last. It's really important on these cars. And you'll notice if you stick around in forums, every single spring and summer, you'll have someone post, my car's burnt down, and things like that, because they're running around with 30-plus-year-old fuel lines. That really isn't a good idea. So now, when we're coming into winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, get these replaced. And if you want to do that, there's a link down below. You can get a little discount code from the company. Like I said, not sponsored or anything. I just think they're really good, and they were very happy and reached out to me after I've been using the product for about 10 years and offered a discount code for you guys. I think that's really cool. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Till next time, I'm Adam. This is Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.